Hello everyone, my name is Protesilaos, also known as Prot. In this video I will talk to you about a philosophical theme, which is, and I will write the title now, so we have philosophy, and this is about being breakable and taking it slow. And I will be referencing the mythical hero Hercules, or Heracles, and we can write it with a K just to be sure. So this is the topic I want to cover today. So what I have here is just the GNOME desktop environment on GNU/Linux. So I will dismiss this, and I just have Emacs here in front of me in case I need to type something for you to read. I want to start this topic by reading a very short poem, the translation of the poem. So this is the original here in Greek, and this is the translation. And the title of this poem is The Pain of Hercules, the pain of Heracles, the mythical hero. So Heracles is known for his peerless strength. He was a demigod, a half god, so he possessed a strength that no other human could ever match. He could do things that were impossible for others. So Heracles was somebody exceptional, somebody that we could never reach as ordinary humans that we are. But the poet is telling us something here, and the poet is speaking the truth. So let's see what this truth is. If it is stone, I break it. Iron, I bend it. But the ever solitary loneliness, I cannot endure. These are the words of Heracles, the demigod, the hero of the myth, the one who can do practically everything, what we ordinary humans cannot do. But the poet reminds us of the half humanity of Heracles. And even though he is half god, he is still half human. And this humanity comes with certain constraints. And one of these constraints is that loneliness is hard to endure, even for a half god. So this is the general idea that I want to now expound on in philosophical terms. So I will take off my glasses. I am not reading from anywhere. This is how I am doing videos now. They are on the go as it is. I am just improvising. There is nothing to read from. So we are breakable. This is the idea. We are not like Heracles. We are not demigods. We are not half gods. We are 100% human. And if someone like Heracles can feel the pains of a human, more so for us. We can feel them even more. We know exactly how it is to feel pain, to suffer. Suffer mentally, but also physically. We know all types of suffering. We experience them. And if we have not experienced them yet, we know others that have. And we understand that we too are prone and susceptible to those same pains and types of experience. So we know all too well from a very young age, from the very first step we try to make and we fall, we know what it feels to have pain and to suffer. We are breakable as humans. There is nothing about us that is too tough nothing about us that is robust, resilient. Everything that we are is subject to breakage. Everything that we are can be undone. If you think you are too strong, you are simply not strong enough. If you think your mental fortitude is peerless, you are simply wrong. It is not strong enough. You are breakable. Everybody is breakable. Me, you, Hercules, everybody is breakable. There is no escape from this condition. There is no amount of training, no amount of philosophizing, nothing that will make you unbreakable. Nothing. Whatever it is that you do, you will always be prone to breakage. What we can do is be less prone. Don't expose ourselves so much to the damage. Don't be out there in the face of the danger, as it were. Try to avoid it a bit more, so we can take measures to mitigate the problem, but not completely remove it. This is the idea. Why am I saying this? Because we have something we call pride. We take our pride to great extremes. We take it too seriously. And by pride now, I don't mean the political statement about identity. That is perfectly fine. You should keep doing that. By pride here, I mean the basic concept of pride, of how we assign too much value to ourselves and we don't want to give up on that value. So we will not admit our errors, for example, because we are too proud. We don't say, I did a mistake. We don't want to do that. We don't want to swallow our pride, as the saying goes. No, we want to be proud. In a similar fashion, we want to be proud by not admitting that we suffer. We want to pretend that we are strong, we are tough, we are unbreakable. But internally, we suffer. Internally, we are desperate. Internally, we panic. But because we are proud, we show a calm face. We show that everything is okay. We don't speak to anyone about our troubles and tribulations. Everything is cool. How are you doing today? Oh, fine. You put up a smile. How about you? Oh, I'm fine as well. Everybody is fine. Externally. Internally, it's a different situation. Internally, they are not fine. Internally, they are putting up a facade to obfuscate what is going on. We are all proud. I know this from first-hand experience. I didn't read it in some book and thought it would be interesting to talk about it in a video. No. I know how it is to be proud. And I know to what great lengths our stupidity can go. Like how much we want to cling on to this pride. How much we want to believe that we are strong, tough, unbreakable, resilient, robust. We are none of that. None of it. I used to think that I am tough. I used to think that I am resolute, resilient, unbreakable, all those things. So when things did not go the way I expect, when I would be sad and disheartened and demotivated, I would not talk to anyone about it. I would not speak up. I would not admit to my reality. I was not being honest. Instead, I was faking it. I was saying, oh, all good. Oh, I'm fine. I'm happy. Nothing to see here. How was your day today? Oh, it was great. What about you? When we don't recognize reality, when we are dishonest with ourselves, this is the most important part that we have to understand. Honesty with ourselves. Forget about being honest with other people. Forget about that for now. But when it comes to your own introspection, to your own self-reflection, please admit what is happening to you. Admit that what is going on is not what you want to externalize, what you want to present. If you are suffering, if you are feeling stressed, if you are feeling disturbed, if something is wrong, you have to admit that something is wrong. Because if you don't do that, you are assuming a burden that will be too heavy for you, a burden that will definitely break you. Maybe it will not break you right away because it's a small burden, but you will be accumulating more burdens that way, because you will be in the mindset, in the attitude, in the habit of not recognizing the truth, of not being honest. So you will keep adding burdens upon burdens upon burdens, because that is what you know to do, because your pride, your honor demands as much, demands that kind of sacrifice. So your pride has become this false god to whom you are sacrificing yourself. You have developed a cult of personality about yourself, your pride, and you have exalted it to that high status. And now you do everything in the service of yourself, of this idol of yours, of this false god that you have up there. To be concrete, let's be concrete here. We live a fast-paced life, a life that is not consistent with our natural rhythms. You find everyone, and everyone is super busy these days. You work 8 hours on paper, usually it's 12. Usually it's more because you also have constant notifications on all your connected devices. But theoretically you work 8 hours per day. Then you have, when you are at home supposedly to relax, you have more work, more responsibilities, more tasks. And you have no time to disconnect. Even your disconnection happens through a connected device. You report on your disconnection. So you are overworking yourself because you think you are tough. You think you can take it. You think that what you are doing will not break you. And you are wrong. Maybe it will not break you right away, but it will eventually catch up with you. You may be young. You may be, let's say, 20-something. You have a nice job. You have found the love of your life. You live in a fancy place. Everything you want is there for you. It's the perfect life, right? So you may think that nothing can go wrong. What I am now talking about is for people who are, let's say, unfortunate in life, or for people who like to complain too much. Whereas you who have the perfect life, are not affected by this. Such may be your thinking. And such might have been the thinking of Hercules, a demigod, someone who had everything he could ever want, someone who could do everything. But you are human, my friend. And sooner or later, in one way or another, life will remind you of the limits imposed upon your condition by your very nature as a human. The problem we have is, as I said, our pride, our honor, our self, that we exalt, that we take too seriously, we push to great lengths. So we do that, and we don't want to admit that we are wrong. We don't want to admit that we are human, that we make mistakes, that we are weak, that we are fragile. No. We want to believe in our own deception, that we are the God we have up there, the God we made out of our own image, this cult of personality that we have. It won't work. It won't work for too long. Eventually you will know that this is a false God, and the sacrifices you make are sacrifices that you are paying with your own blood. It won't work for long. It's not sustainable. To be concrete, to be specific, this is how we end up with a major epidemic of our days: depression and other forms of mental disease. It's called mental, but this is just an analytical construct, because there is no such thing as mental on its own. It's mental and physical. It's one system. The mind and body are part of the same system. So our routines in life, which are not sustainable, those routines where we keep assuming burdens, which influence our sleep cycle, our diet, all of our habits, and which eventually also affect our emotional state and how we think. All those, we call them what leads to a mental disease, but really it's a bit of everything. Depression is something that everyone can suffer. It's not something that only unfortunate people go through. Poor people, people who complain too much. No, it's something that everyone can experience. You read about some rich person, some famous person, some celebrity, and how they are struggling with some mental condition. And maybe you don't have empathy towards them. Maybe you are feeling like, oh, but you are rich, you are beautiful, you are famous, you have the perfect life, right? Why are you complaining? You are entitled. You are spoiled. You don't know how hard life really is, because you don't live in poverty, you are not ugly like me, etc., etc. Don't think that way. Everybody who is human suffers the same things as all humans. Hercules included, even the demigod. Even the demigod suffers what we suffer, let alone the celebrity who is just an ordinary human being. And of course, me and you, we are ordinary human beings, breakable beings. So we can all suffer depression. In my experience, I went through depression for many years. Maybe you cannot draw clear lines, but maybe 4 years. 4 years of depression. There are phases, there are periods in those years that I have no recollection of. I don't remember anything about it. It's like it was, let's say, January, and fast forward to August, and there is nothing in between. It's just blank. It's that sort of thing. Reflecting on my condition, why did I suffer from depression? Why did I go through that phase? I think the most important reason is that I was a fool in thinking that I was unbreakable. This was my hubris. Let me write this word. 1 second, I get my glasses. So this was my hubris. And the Greek, we don't need the Greek word. This is a Greek word, hubris. And it means going beyond your limits. Such was my hubris. I thought I was unbreakable, meaning that I did not recognize the limits of my humanity, what I can and cannot do. So I would not admit that I was under pressure. I would not admit that I was experiencing duress, that I was suffering, that things were not easy. I was thinking that I am Hercules, that I am basically a god, unbreakable, unflinching. The way I did this was by assuming the role of the model professional. The model professional is someone who is the first to go at work and the last to leave. So for example, officially the work would start at 9, I would be there at 8:30. We would finish, let's say, at 6, I would leave at 7. That sort of thing. You may think that I am making things up, but I kept doing this for years. For years. The model professional is also someone who never makes a fuss about anything at the job. It's like you are always happy. Something bad happens, it's okay. Something good happens, it's okay. But you don't really feel that way. You just want to be a model professional, meaning you want to be a good employer, a good worker. You just stick to your job, you don't look around, you don't have anything to say. Oh, this is all I do, this is all I know. Give me more work, please. More work. The model professional is someone who will not say no to work. Someone who will always say yes. Give me more. Yes, yes, please. It is something I have never done before, but of course I can do it. It is something that I don't have free time for, but that's why we have weekends. That's why we have evenings. Give me more, please. More work. I am unbreakable. What happens then when we are committing hubris? Hubris in this case, but also hubris in general, is that we are not honest with ourselves. We are not honest that we are human. We are not honest that we are breakable. So as things go wrong, we keep assuming burdens. We keep saying nothing because we are too proud. And eventually we break. And when we break, it is a collapse. And everything is dark. And then fast forward 4 years and you don't remember anything. What happened? Where are my memories? What went wrong? This sort of experience, as I said, can happen to anyone, including you who have the perfect life. You, my dear, think that you are unbreakable, the same way I used to think. You think that you can do all the work, the way I used to think, and so on. Well, you can listen to what I say here and avoid the trouble, or you will hit your head on a wall and you will break like I did. And maybe you are lucky and you will learn from that experience and you will reform yourself the way I did. Or maybe you will lose your path in that darkness and we will never hear from you again, which would be unfortunate, but it happens. We don't want to break. We want to avoid that eventuality, because once you reach that point, anything can happen, anything. There are many things in life that we underestimate. What I also talked in my previous video about the fully fledged human being, regarding the so-called 1,000 cuts, a death by 1,000 cuts. You have a very small injury, like a fine cut, very fine. You barely notice it, but it's there. And you're like, what could possibly happen? I cannot even feel it. I am tough. But then you have 2 and 3 and 100 cuts. And suddenly they accumulate. And their cumulative effect is starting to hurt you. And eventually when you have 1,000 cuts, you die. This is the idea. But this is how it works with those burdens that we assume. When we don't speak, when we don't recognize what the truth is, when we are dishonest with ourselves. And this happens with everything. For example, you are stressed at the workplace, but you don't say anything. For how long do you think this will be sustainable? 1 year, 2 years, 5 years? Eventually, you will start needing medication or some other kind of support to cope with the trouble. And further down the line, you will be suffering seriously because of those cuts, those fine cuts, those 1,000 cuts that you didn't want to cure, you didn't want to address, you didn't want to avoid. I talk about aloofness many times. Aloofness means to have some distance between where you are and what is happening. You are aloof from the fray. You are not engaged with it. Aloofness basically means what I also have talked about before, that we do not assume ownership over things. We do not make the mistake of thinking that they are an extension of our own, an inalienable aspect of who we are. For example, my pride. I cannot lose my pride. It is absolutely mine. You will never take it from me. Why? What will happen? What will happen if you lose your pride? Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Usually it means that you will not suffer. You will not suffer for being a fool, for clinging on to that which is not yours, to that which you assign value to when it has no value at all. Aloofness means that we learn to disengage. I am not saying that we should be emotionless, that we should not have any kind of hobbies, any kind of interests, that we shouldn't enjoy the presence of another human being, or admire the sunset, or kiss our dog, or whatever. I am not saying that. Aloofness simply means that we recognize that all those things that we like, all those magnitudes, all those values that we assign, they are not truly ours. So we must remember that we need to be practical about it, and there comes a point that where they will be taken away from us. So our attitude has to be such so that we don't assume too many burdens that will break us, burdens that will remind us of our human nature. This is very important. Aloofness is very important. It is not something that you just do. It's not something you learn from me, for example, and you're like, okay, starting from tomorrow, I am aloof. I will just lay back and don't care about anything. Aloof. It doesn't work that way. I developed this disposition of being aloof through years of suffering, through years of reflecting on my condition, through years of being honest with myself. And this honesty is something that I am now able to communicate with the rest of the world. But first it had to be internal. First I had to be honest with what I am, with who I am, with what is going on, with what the case is. And then when this becomes second nature, it can be externalized. But this did not happen easily. This did not happen in one fell swoop. Like, okay, I'm turning page, now I am honest, now I am aloof, la la la. No. It's a slow and grinding process where you eventually come to the conclusion that this is what you have to do. Which brings me to the other aspect, to the other topic of this presentation. Taking things slowly. This is of paramount importance. Because when we take things too quickly, for example, you now hear me saying that I am aloof and I don't stress every day. And you are like, okay, tomorrow I am starting this way as well. No pressure whatsoever. No stress. But because you are not prepared for it, you don't yet have the capacity for it, you will keep experiencing stress and pressure. And you will keep doubting yourself. Like, what is going on? Why can I not do this? I want to do it. Why is it not happening? And because you want too much too quickly, you will not get what you want. And you will rationalize this as you being incapable of doing it. Oh, I am not good enough for this. Prot is special. I am not special. There is nothing special about me whatsoever. The only difference is that I learned to take things slowly, very slowly, patiently. Don't expect magical solutions, immediate results. They don't exist. They never work. Usually magical solutions, immediate results, have a short-term stimulus where you think that they are working, and then eventually you regress. You go back to crisis mode. You go back to not having what you wanted to have and maybe losing what you had before. A bit of it. To give you a concrete example, let's say that you want to do weightlifting. Personally, I don't train with weights. I am against it. But let's say you want to do weightlifting. So you haven't done any before. You are now starting. And you are like, okay, let's go and lift 100 kilos. I can do 100 kilos. Maybe you can do it once, but you will definitely not do it more than once. And because you are not prepared for it, you will most likely injure yourself. And this injury may sideline you for 3 months, depending on the severity. So you wanted a magical solution, you wanted immediate results, and what you got instead was something worse than what you had before. You have the injury now. Now you cannot train at all. This works with everything in life, including mental aspects of ourselves. So it's not just about the muscles, right? It's about everything we do, all our habits. They have to be done slowly in order to be embedded as second nature. And this is literally embedded in ourselves because, for example, muscle memory. The muscle has to work to develop that memory. The connections in the brain, we have to keep working so that they are established. They don't just happen in the blink of an eye. They happen gradually by keep persisting on the thing that we are doing. Slow but steady. This is the idea. Consistency is key. Consistency is what matters. We take it slow and we persist. And we are patient, and our patience will be rewarded. But if we want to go quickly, we think again that we are unbreakable. We think again that we are special. We think again that we are superhuman. Again, this cult of personality. Again, this false god telling us to do things that are harmful for us. And we do those things and then we suffer. We break. To give you an example of what it means to be aloof, of how it is to take things slow and eventually reach a state of non-disturbance, a state of stability. It's not perfect stability in the sense that nothing ever moves, because we are human, we move. But it is a conceptual stability, like maybe you are moving a little bit, but you are not oscillating between extremes. You are not disturbed too much. You are not suffering from motion sickness, as it were. It's like a little bit. So, to give you a concrete example, people come and talk to me, and they will tell me how their day went. And they will be like, this person told me that thing, and I was angry, and then this other person said this, and I was stressed. Why do they even say those things? And then I had to do this, and now I am tired, and I worry what will happen tomorrow. I have deadlines, this sort of thing. So they tell me this, and I listen very carefully, and I reply to what they are telling. But in the back of their mind, they expect me to basically share my side of the same story, right? To show to this person that I am suffering with them, right? We are in the same boat. We are in this together. But I have nothing to say. I have nothing like this to say. It's not because I live among angels and there is nothing wrong here. It simply is because I have learned to not carry those burdens with me. If someone says something, I pay no attention. Okay, that's their opinion, that's their problem. Why should I assume that problem as my own? Someone on the internet wrote about me, let's say. So what? Let them say whatever they want. I don't care, it doesn't matter. If I assume that burden, if I obsess about that idea, if I think that this is now mine, I am carrying it. And if I think about everyone that says stuff and does things, I am simply carrying too many things, and I will break. So I don't carry those things. I don't care. I blot them out. So when I am talking with someone, I have nothing to say about my troubles in life, my troubles during the day, because there were none. And if they were, I forgot about them. What I have learned through those years of depression, those formative years that made me a philosopher, because I didn't study philosophy anywhere. It was life that made me a philosopher. I had no choice in the matter. It was either philosophy or darkness, whatever that would mean down the road. Life made me a philosopher. So what I learned from this experience of turning into a philosopher is that when we keep thinking about things in life, when we keep assuming all those burdens, we are basically treating our body and our mind like a junkyard. It's like a place where you throw all your toxic waste. You have some toxic opinion, oh, throw it here, give it to me. You have some garbage you want to throw away, here, this way. And we keep assuming all that toxicity, all that waste, and we think, again, because we are unbreakable, we think that it's not a problem. We think that we can take it. But waste, toxicity, that sort of thing, erodes our habitat, as it were. It makes our environment unlivable. What philosophy taught me, is to treat this organism, this mind, this body, to treat it as a temple. When I am introspective, when I am with myself, I want this to be the place where I aspire to my highest. There is no noise at the temple. There is no garbage at the temple. You keep it clean, you keep it tidy, and you keep out all the noise that distracts you from your highest. This is the temple. This is the only temple I have. There is no temple B. There is no alternative to it. If I lose this, if this becomes a junkyard, if this becomes a coal mine or whatever, I am lost. And I will suffer greatly. Temples are not built in one day. They take a lot of time to construct them. And because they are not ordinary buildings, you also want to have the interior properly designed so that it inspires you to aspire to your highest. The temple has to be made in a way that is conducive to this task. It's not an ordinary building. So you have to take care to build it properly. And this is a metaphor that I am using now for this idea of slow and steady. You want to build the temple, you want to build it, but it won't happen in one night. Keep adding to it, and eventually you will get there, eventually. And when you are there, you will have a refuge to resort to when you want to disconnect from the life that troubles you. And when you reach a point where this temple is welcoming for you, life around you will no longer burden you, because you will no longer assume those burdens. You will reach this point of being aloof, of keeping a distance, of not assuming ownership over things that are not yours, things that cannot be yours. And this is why Hercules cannot tolerate loneliness, as the poet says. The poet spoke the truth. By the way, the name of the poet is Lambis Xylouris. Xylouris is the name of a famous family of musicians, extremely talented people, from the Greek island of Crete. So Lambis Xylouris. The poet spoke the truth in those few words. The truth that we now heed, we now listen to, and we try to unpack and try to see how far it goes. What is the profundity of those simple words? The profundity of what we see and we think is simple and straightforward. It is the same with everything I say. All I talk about is simple. I don't use professorial words. I don't have nouns or verbs that are unknown and are not included in any kind of dictionary. If I use a word, I explain what I mean. I am not trying to hide anything from you. I am not trying to impress you. I am not trying to sound smart, because that is a matter of pride and vanity. Again, the false god, this cult of personality. Oh, I am very good. Oh, I am great. Oh, I am the best. I am not great. I am not the best. I am not special. I am not perfect. I am not unbreakable. This has to be embedded in our understanding. It is the first step to start building the temple. If you don't recognize this, you will keep worshipping this false god of your own self. And you will suffer. So Hercules suffers from loneliness because he has not yet put in the requisite work to recognize that he too is breakable. Hercules, the hero of myth, the son of a god, the peerless strength of this person, is breakable. He too can suffer because he is part human, and his humanity is the same as our humanity, and we know exactly how that feels. Hercules then suffers from loneliness. He cannot tolerate, he cannot endure loneliness because he thought he was too strong for it. He wasn't being honest with himself, with his condition, with his humanity. What is loneliness, by the way? There are two types, because this is again a topic that I have covered in my writings on my website, and I keep getting asked about it fairly often. How do I how do I feel less alone? There was a recent publication on my website about this question. How do I feel less alone? There are two types here. One is solitude, which means that you are literally alone. There is no one around you. And as humans, we are sociable. We are social animals. We need company. We need interaction with others. With other humans, but also with animals. For example, with my dog. So we don't want to be alone. We want to find some hobby, find some community, either physical or virtual, where we can feel part of a greater whole, something that is outside of us, something bigger than us. When I was feeling solitary in those years of darkness, I volunteered to do some work for a religious group in my milieu. I am not religious. I did not believe in what they were saying. It's not that everything they said was wrong. They said many things that are correct, and I agree with. But in terms of the theological point, I did not share that view. But it didn't matter, because what I wanted to do was to help those people do something good, and in the process, heal myself, escape from my solitude, because I met other people. I interacted with other people. Wow, other people exist. That's new to me, after all that process of suffering. So there is solitude that you want to address by putting yourself out there. Don't be shy. And don't make the mistake of thinking that you are perfect. Don't be a perfectionist. Please do this. Please learn from me. I was the perfectionist par excellence. Don't do that. Because if you are the perfectionist type, you are assuming too many burdens. Again, you think you are unbreakable. Again, you think you are a god, and so on. Don't apologize to people. Oh, sorry for being imperfect. We know you are human. Everybody is imperfect. So just go out there and find the others. Physically or virtually. It's okay. And remember to take it slow. One small step at a time, but be consistent. And eventually you will escape from your solitude. Eventually you will feel part of a community. So that's the one thing of being alone. And then the other one is loneliness, which is not about being alone. Maybe you talk to people, maybe you have neighbors, relatives, etc. But you are not on the same wavelength as they are. They do not understand you. They cannot understand you. Not because they are fools or something like that. I am not saying this. It's just that they have different inclinations, different interests, different priorities, different experiences in life. They are different. As simple as that. And when you are lonely in this way, it means that you feel that there is no one that you can share something with. So no matter how many friends you have, no matter how many communities you join, you can still be lonely. You can be a popular person and still be lonely. And loneliness has no cure. The only way to not being lonely is to find someone that understands you. But that is a matter of coincidence. You cannot just have someone on demand. You are not entitled to anyone. There is nothing you yourself can do about it. Of course, you can take care of yourself and be aloof and all those things. But this does not guarantee that you will find someone who understands you. Someone that you can really talk with. Hercules does not understand this point. Hercules thinks that because he is strong, he is the son of a god, he is entitled to everything. So he thinks that he can have someone who understands him. And that's why he suffers, because that someone is not the property of Hercules. It's not just, I want someone and this someone materializes. Here it is. It doesn't work that way. So Hercules does not understand that he needs to be aloof and accept reality for what it is. Don't try to give it more value. Don't try to belittle yourself, thinking that you are somehow broken and defective. Don't try to rationalize it. Like, the reason that I am not understood is because, I don't know, I have this weird brain and people cannot understand. That's why. Don't do that. Don't do that. This is just you coming up with justifications that are not true. You are just trying to give an answer to something that has no definitive answer. You are being dishonest with yourself. Leave it as it is. Don't try to rationalize it. Learn how to not assume burdens. Learn how to be aloof, how to reach this point of stability. Step by step, slowly, gradually, but consistently. Build up that stamina, that endurance. And you will then avoid the fate of Hercules. You will then won't suffer from loneliness, stress, expectations, anger, fear, depression, and so on. You will not suffer from those because you will not make them your own. This is the temple. The garbage stays outside. The toxicity stays outside. This is the temple where I aspire to my highest. I won't let it turn into a junkyard. I won't pollute it. The defilers must stay outside. This is all I had for you today, folks. Thank you very much for your attention. Please learn to take it easy. Please don't try to do too many things too quickly. Please do not pretend that you are perfect. Do not pretend that you are tough. Do not pretend that you are strong, resilient, unbreakable. Speak. Talk to people. If something is wrong, say it as it is. If something does not feel right, be honest with yourself. Don't assume burdens. The burdens will break you. Don't make the mistake of thinking that your perfect life, if you have the perfect life, the good job, the fancy place, the love of your life, don't think that this protects you. If you keep assuming burdens, you too will break. Hercules had the most perfect life, and he breaks. And you too will suffer the same fate if you keep assuming burdens. Finally, the very last point. I know how it is to feel tough. For example, I was a sports person and I still am physically active, but I used to play football semi-professionally, and I would have signed a professional contract had it not been for an injury, which happened at the wrong time. It wasn't what I wanted, but it happened. When you are physically active, when you are at this level of competitiveness, and when you are a champion, when you have that mindset of being a champion, of being the best in class, of not compromising, of pushing your limits. I want more, I want better, I will not stop. You get this rush, all those hormones, you feel unbreakable, you really do. I know exactly how that feels. But even then, when you think that you are a little bit like Hercules in terms of strength, you are still breakable. An injury, and there goes your toughness. Off it is. A misfortune, you lost everything. That's all for today, folks. Thank you very much for your attention. I just need to find the recording software to close it. Wearing the glasses is always, because of the difference in clarity. The next video will likely have a different format, but you will have to wait for it to see what I mean. So, that's all for today, folks. Thank you very much for your attention and take it easy. Goodbye. Take care.